Hello everyone. In this video, I will go over the topic of SQL joins. So whenever we have a query where we want to retrieve information from or retrieve an attribute from two different entities or three different entities, we have to use a clause called as joins. There are different ways you can implement these joins in SQL. First, you can use a join operator, or you can use a matching values using a primary key and foreign keys along with the where clauses. This is something which we have done in a relational algebra. You can do the similar to that. But there are different join operators out there which you need to understand in case we want to retrieve information based on common or distinct information. So there are different type of operators of joins you should know about. So in this slide, you can see here I have provided with you a brief overview of the different type of joins. First, I want you to look at the left outer join, which is given in the middle. So full outer join is basically means that we have two entities are here. So we have two sets, two oval which is overlapping on each other. So we are saying that we are assuming that this is our entity one and this is our entity two. So the colored fill means that we have whatever we have in mid is a common values or common values and common attributes between these two entities, and the rest of them which is not overlapping, which means it is distinct or different values. So here we are referring to entity itself. So common attributes and common values between the entities, which is an overlapping on each other, and the ones which is distinct as well. So whenever we're using a full outer join, which means we're trying to retrieve all the information, whether it's a common or different as a whole. In MySQL, we cannot use a full outer join clause. So what we can do, we can use first a left join, then right join, and then we use in between. So whatever the result we receive from here and here, we will use a union between. Now we have a left join and the right join. The left join means we are looking at the common values and the distinct value of only entity one, which is given in the left side. Okay, leftmost entity. So for example, if we have a customer here and we have an invoice here, we will look at the common values between these and then we retrieve information here. Okay, only the information about the customer which is given there and from the invoice. So if you have any customer which is null in entity 2, it will not display it. In case if you want to not retrieve information which is common, only the distinct from rightmost entity, we use left join with a null. Okay, which means we have only distinct attributes and values. For the inner join, means that in case we want only retrieve a common information, we use an inner join. You can use an inner join or you can use only join. Both of them work in a similar manner. It will give you the same results. Now for the right join, same like left joint, we are retrieving information from the left joint only or left entity only. Now here we are retrieving information from right entity. So which means it will try to match the information from the right to the left. It will look at the common values and retrieve an information of the rightmost entity. So in case if we have a customer here and here we have invoice, it will try to find a common values between the customer invoice, and then it will look at the distinct values in invoice, and whatever information is missing, it will be padded for the customer, it will be padded with the null values. If we want to exclude our common values, we use it with null. Now let's look at some of the examples. And before going ahead with the example, let's look at the syntax of join operators. The first step, we have to use a select. We have to select all the attributes we are interested to retrieve information from. We want to retrieve information from two tables, so we will use from table number one, and in between, instead of using instead of using a comma to separate them, we use inner join, because in this one we are using, you can use here inner join, or you can use here join, left join, right join. Is depend on what, how you want to retrieve an information. Is it a common one, not common one, or is it from the leftmost or the rightmost? Once you have written from, you identified your entities, you have to now link those entity based on primary key and foreign key. So first you have to do, you have to find primary keys in each of them, and then how both of the entities are linked together, which means you have to look at all the entities which is linked to each other based on primary key and foreign keys. So another clause we are using here on, then we refer to a table 1 and its primary key equal to table 2, and this primary key should be in table 2 as a foreign key, which means both of them need to be linked together. Once we have retrieved information, in case if we have applied any condition here, we use a where clause. This is how we can use a join operator. Now look at an example. So now we're looking at an example of each of them. So it's already given in your slide, so I'm just going over the queries. The first one, it says the list the name of students enrolled in course 3 in fall 2023, which means you're looking at the name of the student enrolled in course 3. This is a course ID, and the fall 2023 means it may be a semester. So now let's look at our entities and the attributes. So name of the students, we already know it exists in the student name. So we are writing here selecting the first name and the last name. So let's say it is from the student, and I'm calling it as S. The second one, it says enroll in course 3 in fall 2023. So it means it can be from the course. Let's look at the course. It has an ID, but it doesn't have a fall 2023. So now let's look at any other entity which consists of both of the information. So if you go here in enrollment, which means you also have a course ID and you also have something called as a term year. So which means your correct entity to select from here is called as involvement, and I'm naming it as E here. I haven't used any joins here. I'm just writing the entities from where I have to retrieve information. So I have a first name and the last name. As it says, this the names only. It doesn't say any other attributes. If it, in case if you want to show the enrolled course ID and fall, you can also select these attributes as well. So now I already have selected my attributes. Select first name and last name. My entity is student S from student S, and the second entity is enrollment E, but I want to combine these two entities together. So what I will do, I will use a join in between. So I'm using here inner join because I want to make sure it says enroll in course 3 in fall 2023, which means I'm trying to find the common information between a student and enrollment, which means we have that student which exists also in enrollment entity information as well, which means it's a common information between both of them. So I'm using here inner join. You can use inner join or you can use join. Both of them will give you similar answers. Now I already have used a join. Now I want to link the next step here is that whenever you are using a join, you have to link your entities together using a primary key and the foreign keys. So here the syntax is on. Now I'm trying to link them together. In the student, the primary key is student ID, right? So I'm using here S, and my primary key here is student ID, and I'm using an equal to my involvement. So I'm looking at involvement. Do you have any foreign key from the student here? So we know that the student ID here is also a foreign key, which means from the primary key and foreign key, we can link these two together. So we already have linked them. First, we have selected our attributes. Second, we have selected our attributes. Sorry, entities, which is we want to combine them together, and then we have linked them together using a primary key and foreign key. And the next step here is that it says in course 3 in fall 2023. So which means you have a condition here. So you have a condition where it says course ID is equal to 3 and fall 2023 is your term year. So we write here fall 2023. When you try to retrieve an information, okay. So whenever you're writing here, you can see we have given an aliases. So we have to make sure we also select write an attribute as an aliases here. E, and this is also from the involvement, and these two are from student. So we always have to use an aliases. So if we remember that I have given a name as, so instead of writing all the name as fully, we will just use an aliases here, and we use a comma, sorry, dot or full stop in between, which means I'm retrieving this information from student attribute, student entity, and this information also from the student entity. Whereas e course id, which means I remember that e means that I'm trying to tell my MySQL that I'm trying to retrieve information of the course id from the involvement e, which I have joined here. You always have to use an aliases because make it easier for MySQL to understand from which attribute, from which entity I'm trying to retrieve that specific attribute from. So now if you try to run it, so your answers will be null because I do not have any information which is related to course ID 3 and term year 4, okay, 2023. In case if you want to look at, you want to test your query, you can use select all from enrollment to see whether you have any course ID 3, which is enrolled in fall 2023. So fall 2023 here, you can see you have fall 2023, but you do not have any course ID in fall 2023, which means your result here is correct. So in case if you want to combine three entities together, you have to use three entities and look at the primary key and the foreign keys of them. So for example, your next query says that you have to list a name of the student along with the name of the course they enroll in for the fall 2023 in term, including their marks. So attributes here, first thing you can do is that you can look at the attributes. It says select student name. So we know that it's a first name and the last name. And it is from the student. It is as, so I will include my aliases here as dot and as dot here. Then it says with the name of course. So if you have remember the involvement, we have a course ID, but we do not have a name, which means we have to refer to an entity called as a course. Course consists of a course name. So I write here a course and C for the course name, for the course entity, and says course name. So I will include here C dot course name because I want to identify that I have used a course name from C, which is a course itself. And then says they are enrolled in for fall term 2023, which means we have a condition here. So condition means we can write here condition as where term year, which is from enrollment. So we have to include another entity here, enrollment, and it is e term year is equal to fall 2023, including their marks. So we do not have more condition. We have only one condition, which is e term is equal to fall 2023. But it says that we also have to include a mark. So if you look at your entities, you can find the mark in enrollment. So you write here e and mark. So now we already know our attributes. We know what are the entities. We know the condition. Now we want to stitch them together. How we can stitch them together. So if you look at the student, we have a primary key, student ID there, but we do not have any foreign key in the course ID, which means we need to change our direction. We have to look at the third one. In the third entity, we have primary key of student IDs there. We also have a course ID, which is a foreign key of enrollment. So what we will do, we'll place our enrollment after a student. We include our inner join here. After we have used an inner join, we have to make sure that we are also including on into it in order to link them. So I'm using here on. So always we will connect first two entities